What's going on, gamers? We got an interesting video here to talk about when it comes to PSSR and it being a sneak peek at PS6 image quality, what's it probably going to be capable of doing, and what will be the difference between PS5 Pro and PS6 in the next cross-gen period. Digital Foundry says they've got some thoughts, and then we see early comment right here saying the difference between PS6 and PS5 Pro will be the same between PS5 Pro versus PS5 at the moment when you see that difference. Here's my thought. I think PS6 is going to be able to do something like path tracing, obviously day one. And when you see that difference, there's definitely a difference there. And because it's going to have a much better CPU and more RAM, there's going to be a difference there. And that's going to be the base upgrade that everybody's going to want to go to. Where it's like the Pro is not a base upgrade that everybody wants to go to. But I think now more than ever, it is going to be something that's going to be very attractive as Sony extends the lifetime cycle of the PS5 because it's needed. And that the Pro will be able to last a lot longer. And if you get that, you're still going to be fine because you're going to be able to get something now that is making a difference for PSSR 2. It is definitely a major difference compared to before. And like I said, this gives us a sneak peek into what the console is going to be able to do going forth from here on out. I can't wait to see other comparisons like everybody else. And this gives you the idea of how it can keep on improving. Like when you think about DLSS 4, DLSS 4.1, 2, 3, all the way to 4.5. Same thing with FSR 4, all the way up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It always goes like that. PSSR is doing the same thing here. It's going to be getting its upgrades. So we'll be seeing that go all the way to the PS6 generation and beyond. So it could only get better with more technology. Now going over to Digital Foundry's page, we get an idea here what they were talking about. It says last week's reveal of the second generation PSSR presents a mouth-watering proposition. Like, it was a huge jump, more than people thought, because a lot of people were doubting it compared to where it was before. But it's like, yeah, no. And then you have a proposition right here. Should you buy a PS5 Pro now instead of a PS6 later? Well, the new PSSR is great based off what we've seen so far, but PS6 will be something quite different. Yeah, because you're going to have more CPU power and RAM for path tracing and all that. If all goes to plan, the PlayStation 5 Pro moves one step closer to being the console we always hoped it would be. I agree. This is where we've always wanted it to be. I'll zoom in even more for you guys. Representing a proper upgrade over the standard model while hinting at some of the technologies we should expect to see from PlayStation 6. Yeah, it gives you that inside scope, and it's always nice getting something like that. It says it has raised an interesting question from our community. Are we getting a preview today of the console of tomorrow? That might be a somewhat optimistic appraisal of the situation, but the promise of the new PSSR 2 looks undeniable. 100%. Capcom shows you already. Right now, Resident Evil Requiem represents the potential of the Pro at its zenith. It does. Of course, it's the same game as that seen on the base model. Both run at 60 frames per second. However, thanks to the new PSSR 2 PSSR dubbed PSSR 2 by the user base, but not by Sony itself, true, we have image quality that wipes the floor with all other console versions of the game. You see, what he just said right there gives you the example of now it's setting itself apart with that. He didn't just say where it makes a jump. He said it wipes the floor. We've seen it with all other consoles. On top of that, ray traced global illumination and ray traced reflections are frankly game-changing. Yeah, it used to be a thing back then, but now we're seeing there is a difference now because it has definitely evolved to this point to where it's like, okay, this technology now and where you have it at now, it is no longer a question of something you do not want to deny if you can get 60 frames per second or get close to it with that on. Like we saw with Ghost of Yotei, which is also incredible. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with that with PSSR 2. It's going to be nuts. And, Legends is coming around the corner, so expect to see that. And future games like Crimson Desert, you know what I mean? Every Sony exclusive. Marvel's Wolverine is going to be nuts. We should expect to see developers update many of their existing games with the new PSSR. But at the same time, Sony is providing a front-end toggle that automatically swaps out the old version for the new version in the existing lineup of games. As I did on my video yesterday, which took off. Thank you all for the support. That was incredible. At a stroke, we should see a vast improvement across a majority of Pro titles. And for many. Yeah, and guys, you don't be putting those comparisons up because it's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see what other games are going to be looking like just with the backwards compatibility support day one instantly. That might be enough to make an existing purchase justified and to enlarge the install base with new users that appreciate the upgrade on their 4K screens. So what they're telling you too, guys, is when that new version comes out, you're not going to need a patch. You just need a toggle and it hits straight up on. It's very nice. So we'll be testing the difference between system level and developer sourced PSSR upgrades. System level meaning the toggle, and developer source, which means the ones they add in with a patch. Because there's a question that needs answering. Yeah, for sure. If the system level toggle works as well as FSR3 to FSR4, or like DLSS3 to DLSS4 control panel injection tweak seen on PC, why bother developers with having to upgrade their games? It's an interesting question. Yeah, unless they want to add in more sauce and their game is still like in function to be updated, and you might as well do that because you're still dropping updates with it, like games like Battlefield 6, Call of Duty, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Ghost of Yotei, which is about to get the Legends upgrade next month. You know, when you think about stuff like that, it's like a Monster Hunter Wilds, because it's going to get an expansion. It's like, yeah, those games are going to get it. It's an interesting question. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, if it makes that much of a difference automatically, that is going to be so nice for console gamers because that's how they are anyways. They want that automatic plug and play, and it's just working automatically for them, and they just hit a toggle on. And I think anybody in general would want that who wouldn't, you know what I mean? But what does this, or where does this leave PS5 Pro versus PlayStation 6, and what is almost certainly set to be an even longer cross-generational period than the last? Could a potentially cheaper Pro purchase today reduce the need for an expensive PS6 upgrade tomorrow? Like, imagine a Pro down the line being $600, you know what I mean? And then I think you're going to have to do that anyways, because think about it. You're not going to be able to have that at its price when the PS6 comes out. When that market comes down, which it will, they're going to have to drop the price of the Pro eventually to 600, and eventually it might get down to like 550 or 500 in the future. But 600 before anything, though, and 650. So that's something to think about when that happens. Will it keep selling? I think this will be selling a lot more than a PS4 Pro in the long term just because of that and how insane the PC market is and what you're getting for that price point compared to building a PC and getting those results. Well, there may well be the argument that Sony will use PS5 Pro as a proving ground for whatever machine learning technologies emerge from the Project Amethyst collaboration. Exactly as we see now, where AMD's FSR4 was effectively ported over to become the second generation PSSR. This is all good because this is AMD getting spotlight and not NVIDIA, which you want more competition. I hope Intel does it too, and China steps in. Frame generation would be a likely next port of call if Sony decides to go down this route. However, the more of AMD's machine learning technologies that ship on PlayStation 5 Pro, the less novelty PS6 may represent to users. That's why I think PS6 is going to have a lot more things to it, because it needs to be very attractive. And that's why you got to wait for that time. Like I said, late 2028 at the earliest. But beyond that, I do still think that, notionally at least, Sony is still wedded to the concept of the console generation, and lead system architect Mark Cerny has shared some hints on how he sees the future of technology. Ray tracing and machine learning are a core part of that vision, and while PS5 Pro represents a step forward in that regard, the recent Project Amethyst update takes us further with some hints of the future of graphics hardware, presumably on technologies we'll find in AMD's RDNA 5 and indeed PlayStation 6. The discussion included talk on neural arrays for better optimized on GPU for ray tracing workloads. We learned about universal compression that should radically improve memory bandwidth, tuned for vastly improved machine learning and ray tracing performance. Radiance cores for unified light transport may hint at a future geared not just for ray tracing, but to path tracing too. Yeah, of course, because that's the next step. And while it's not discussed in the Amethyst video, PS6 will address the CPU performance shortfall in the current generation of PS5. That's what I'm saying. That's going to be a huge selling point, is path tracing. And it's going to be in the same situation as ray tracing for PlayStation 5 generation. And so I'm going to get better and better as the generation goes on. So PS5 Pro works as a tangible upgrade to the standard PlayStation 5, especially if the new PSSR is as good as all games compared to Resident Evil Requiem, basically they're saying. But similar to the PS4 Pro, it is basically a machine of the same generation. It has the same CPU limitations, the same core feature set in the same system ecosystem, or software ecosystem, and crucially, the same development environment. Rec Room shows us how transformative the Pro can be, but this is still an enhanced console, unlikely to compare favorably with whatever comes next. Yeah, exactly. But it's still going to be very nice, and people are getting to that point now where the diminished returns are so high, they could sit with that for a while. No, I'm getting PS6 day one, but still, it is still nice. So they're saying, I'd venture to suggest that the real question is how the next cross-gen period will play out more generally. Once new consoles are available, the concept of developers giving as much care and attention to the lower install base of the last-gen Pro console remains to be seen. Last generation, both PS4 Pro and Xbox One X saw the quality of their enhancements diminished once the new hardware arrived, but I think it'll be different for the Pro. In servicing the last generation, the PS4 took point as it had a sizable user base worth addressing. PS4 Pro saw some resolution boost and performance stability improvements, but it was in no way comparable to PS5. The notion of a 4K PS4 quickly dropped away. I'd expect history to repeat itself to an extent because I think the generational leap with PS5 to PS5 Pro compared to a 4 is definitely hitting walls, but PS6 is obviously going to set a new standard that is needed when it comes to limitations of CPU and RAM. No doubt about that, of course. So they're pretty much right about that. And then he says, while the PS5 Pro will be a machine of its era, if we're looking at long cross-gen period, there's no reason why the PSSR 2, as showcased here, shouldn't continue to deliver far superior image quality than the base PS5. Correct. And he's like, perhaps I'm being overly pessimistic. Perhaps there will be a unified development environment for all relevant PlayStation consoles. I think so, because Sony's going to try to have all those settings, kind of like different PC fix settings sitting there to support them as long as possible. And they'll just drop off PS4 and Pro like they did recently. Similar to what Microsoft tried to achieve with its game developer kits, which sought to unify Xbox One, Series X, and even PC. But ultimately, I expect the next-gen Sony console to offer so many more possibilities to developers that it would become the new focus. Correct, it is, and it's going to help out. In that scenario, PS5 and PS5 Pro fall into the same bucket, but I think less. The Pro will still have value, however, simply by virtue of the new PSSR's ability to make so much more for limited pixel counts. Agreed. So basically, that's pretty much what they were kind of talking about here, guys. That's something to talk about. I think that the Pro will definitely last a few more years easily, and it will stay in support line. And the base PS5, obviously, I don't think they're thinking about holding back the PS6. They're just going to be able to scale things that are going to be cross-gen, probably third-party. And if Sony wants exclusives for PS6, they will have that. Obviously, I think there's going to be a balance here. Definitely when you have an install base to still take care of. That's what I think is going to happen. So yeah, this is more about what would that next generation console divide look like. We're moving into reading the tea leaves territory here, but I'd imagine we'll be looking at more stark versions of what is playing out in the PC space right now. The same games will run across both generations, but enhanced ray tracing hardware, along with robust machine learning, will see the next gen consoles deliver far superior ray trace visuals and much higher frame rates. Exactly. Whether that's down to machine learning, super resolution, frame generation, or both working in concert, basically. We may even see the ray tracing effects on today's current gen consoles deprecated in favor of just getting tomorrow's games running effectively. I'd also hope to see the image quality issues of current generation resolved by mature machine learning upscaling. And I think that's where the PS5 Pro will offer us a taste of what's to come next. It will. We've seen how well the new PSSR works on a game with a baseline of pretty much 1080p resolution like Rec Room. But just how low can it go and still look that good? Games like Alan Wake 2, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Avatar, and Shadows, Assassin's Creed Shadows, among many others, should answer a lot of questions. We can't wait to get to testing. Pretty much. And we all want answers of what's going to be coming with all these other games and games that have problems automatically. And if you add in the next generation package and for future games coming out, and definitely Grand Theft Auto 6, you know that's going to be massive. People cannot wait to get their answers for that. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about this too when it comes to the PSSR 2 being a sneak peek of what PS6 is going to be able to take to an even higher degree. What's going to be the divide when the PS6 drops? How are you going to be looking at the PS5 and the PS5 Pro? Is it going to be the same way you looked at the PS4 and the PS4 Pro when the PS5 dropped? Because there definitely was a huge jump there. But I think now more than ever, the jump is getting lesser and lesser, and you need something more than power, which we obviously know about, but I think PS6 is going to have a lot of great things. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think about that. Really good write-up here about Digital Foundry. It is something to talk about and to keep the topic of PSSR going, which we're all excited about. Like I said, Resident Evil Rec Room definitely blew minds. So it's good to see that because everybody was wondering, are you going to be getting that upgrade that you wanted with the PS5 Pro? And we're finally seeing that with this game, and I can't wait to see more. Later, y'all. Keep gaming no matter what platform you're on. Peace.